Hey, ladies, gentlemen, and transgenders. It's time for episode 11 of the Slothcast, a Heroes of the Storm podcast. It's another hour of information that will help you win more games in the Nexus. And Morpheus, just this week I found out what Anu Barak's favorite band is. Do you know?
No.
It's the Beatles. This week, we have a great lineup as it's special tailored to our weekly special segment. But enough of that. I am your friendly neighborhood Latino Narsha, and I'm not rolling alone. Oh, no. With me today are the multiple Grandmaster German we wanted to get on the show for 2 months, are back now, 2 weeks after we talked to Warriors with BKB. He's a veteran in the Elite Heroes Lounge Division, captain and shotcaller. Welcome back, Morpheus.
Hey ho, I'm happy to be back on the show. Yeah, it was so great, so I needed to come back instantly to get more of these awesome jokes.
Yeah, I knew I could break through your German humor somehow. When people listen to this, Morpheus, the first opponents in Season 4 of the Heroes Lounge have been announced. Are you excited to meet your opponents?
I actually don't know who we're playing against.
No, when people are listening to this.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, probably we get rigged again, as always. But I'm really hyped. So I think actually, like, I don't know if it's seeded in the beginning, the matchmaking, but it's a lot of teams in Division 1, I think 27 or something. So it's like kind of random hit or miss if you hit a really good opponent or maybe somebody that you would consider an easier opponent. So yeah, really excited to get to know my opponent. I guess there will already be some really good matches on the first match day already.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in Division 1 this year. A lot of stacked teams and some rigged teams. And talking about the easier opponent. Next up, another multi-season Grandmaster player that makes his debut on the show this very week. And in real life, he is a 20-year-old researcher and picture editor, while in the Nexus, he is a shot caller and captain of the Need for Feed ship with all its fruits and anchors. In his own words, a completely sane person who plays HOTS with memes instead of having a productive life. Welcome to the show, Ravatar.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, or I wasn't, then I heard that terrible bug joke, and now I'm a bit less. But yeah, I'm also excited for the Season 1. Maybe face you, Morpheus, would be a good time.
Oh, that would be actually funny. Yeah.
For you, at least. I don't know. Okay, the Need for Feed has become kind of meme, but I think we're not that rigged in the end. It could be.
Yeah, because you guys, you've also been in the Heroes Lounge for many seasons now, but you made a new team for this season. How are things feeling with the new team?
I really like especially the environment in my new team. Like, I thought it would be a great downgrade from my last team, which was James Baker TM. But actually, we've been able to do some pretty cool stuff in Team League, and we've practiced some of the absolutely new cheeses we are about to bring out. And we just figure that if we get much better teams against us, well, cheese can always prevail, and feed ruins every strat. So I think we have a good chance.
Good to hear. And I guess it helps that Frog never feeds.
Yeah, we established that, and we also figured that what if we put him on heroes that can benefit from feeding, and even in feed Tyrael is a certified meme now.
Frog, as all the listeners of the Slothcast know, is another Finnish Heroes player that has been on the show many times. But it's not only Ravatar that makes his debut this week. In the bottom right of our beautiful layout, you'll see a new friendly face. And spoiler, he is pretty important to this week's special. Someone out of the ordinary Slothcast-wise, he plays support and is a shot caller of a Dream in the 4th division of Heroes Lounge. Welcome to the show, Mephir.
Hello, nice to be here. And I still don't get it why you did the Beetle joke in the beginning. It's so bad.
It's so bad. It's so great. Oh yeah. Yeah, okay. You're not coming on the show again. At least we established that already. Okay.
Maybe the other people want me to have to be on the show again because I blame you for the joke.
Yeah, I guess that will go down popular with some of our viewers. Now, Mefir, last season you played in Division 5 with a free agent team. What changed before this season?
Basically nothing. The name changed and we added one additional guy to the team because we were only 5 people in the team. And in Division 5 it was kind of hard to get all 5 together during the week because all were working and so on. So we now added another 6 guy to the team and scrimming against some other Division 4 teams going quite well at the moment.
Sounds good. But you did change divisions. Did you promote or were you just rigged because of MMR?
I think we got rigged by MMR because the name changed with the new website. Nobody knows that we were Fat 10, a free agent team last season. Now we renamed to Dream. And I think we were treated as a new team and then just got rigged by MMR to Division 4 with, I don't know, around 40 teams are in Division 4 now.
Yeah, it seems pretty substantial. Are you prepared for this Division 4 and the new season?
I hope so. We scrimmed against Dropkick Murkies, who made to the playoffs last season without losing a single map in Division 5. And we are in favor at the moment in maps between them, and so it's working good.
Sounds good. Now, there is one thing that all my 3 guests have in common today, that they are shot callers for their teams, because this week's special segment will be about the also elusive skill of shot calling. It was actually a viewer of the show that sent the message some weeks back saying, "We want to improve and get better for the next season, and there are not many sources dedicated to team play. What we need to participate better in Heroes Lounge. Most content is for individuals and their improvement rather than oriented to get the whole team better. And since we in the Slothcast pretty much do whatever our listeners tells us to, here we are. We'll go through key aspects of shot calling, which will hopefully be of help to everyone out there. And while Morpheus and Ravatar are grandmasters and have shot called on a high level for a long time, Morpheus is pretty new to it and can hopefully be the voice of the people, asking what the people want to know. But before that, we have to let the Ravatar rant a little on other things heroes, which he'll get to do after a super short intermission. Long time no see. Before we jump into the big educational segment for the week, we're going to have a talk over a couple of heroes for the 3rd week in a row. Yeah, I know, but those things, they just happen. As Stukovs and Rework Soul went live this week, and while we previously have gotten our hands on the PTR, this Infested Admiral have seen a lot of play the first week. And Ravatar, you have some thoughts on the latest report to enter the Nexus?
Yeah, I do. I just want to state first, I think Stukovs is really good hero, and I think one of the best heroes in the game, but I still think people overrate him a lot because I think he actually has the highest skill cap in the game. Even considering Vikings and Ravatar and stuff like that exist, he has so many moving particles that he has to control around that I haven't met a single Stukovs yet who has been able to do that. Even close to perfection. So I don't think he's actually first ban or first pick worthy, and that is something I see a lot everywhere right now.
Okay, so are you saying like his potential is just really high?
His potential is really great because if you play Stukovs like a robot and you do everything perfectly, you can every 5 seconds heal your entire team, like their entire health bar. If you manage to fulfill all the requests your talents give, such as hitting one target only with W, managing to spread your Q at right time to every single person and pressing the D button while the Q is actually in the air, so it keeps spreading through universal carrier. If you go for that route.
Okay, yeah, this in any way like tied up to, I saw Bakery released like a build, and then a little bit later it released like a revised build that wasn't as hardcore, like does that tie into it somehow?
Yeah, that what I just talked about was the first build Bakery gift. That's really the tryhard Stukov, where you get the most out of it if you know how to play the hero properly. But you can get a lot out of him even with the secondary build, but it's in that case it's not the first pick, first ban hyped version of Stukov.
Okay. Morpheus, have you played much Stukov in your scrims yet?
In scrims actually not at all, because he's not allowed in Heroes Launch and Open Division, so we didn't scrim with him at all, but like we played with him Quick Match, Team League, stuff like that. I think he's actually really, really strong, even with the Lurking Arm build, so basically the noob build. I think his kit is super good designed. Like I'm really happy with the hero, because I think it's pretty easy to like just get heals out with him. Like you don't need to play anything insane with that. It's like super easy to get the lowest value with him, but to get his max potential, you need to play really well and be concentrated the whole time. And I really like that about his kit. I think it's super good. And also, like I think the advanced build that Bakery basically created, or probably also some other supports, but everybody saw it first from Bakery. I think the build actually has a lot of potential in theory, but I think in practice or like in the game, it will never appear that you get like the value of this build, because the game is just changing too fast. So even if the math is like basically the best for universal carrier, if everything goes right, I think you will never get the value out of this talent. I think it's actually the biggest trap talent in the Soul kit. And also Pox Populi, like I mean the other 16 talent Pox Populi is just as insane probably, and it's in pub games or also when you're not as good with Stukov, Pox Populi gets insane value. So I think overall the hero is just really, really good, and hopefully it will shake up the support meta a bit, because it has been quite stale since Lucia got nerfed.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because it has his kit is pretty like all around, like especially like you mentioned the Lurking Arm build is seeing some play now, even if it's a new build. Like sorry, it's just OP that he can channel it without draining mana.
I just wanted to say, I think there's a place where the E build is actually the best build. And that spot is if you have a heavy pushing composition where you can just leave a massive E that spreads to the entire fort area, and then you have, say, Zarya or Sylvanas or something, and heavy 4-man push, and the enemy team cannot do anything about it because you have such a massive silence area. But that requires some cheese drafting, I think. Or then there are some specific scenarios, say in Infernal Shrines, where you can just block an entire pathway to the shrine with it.
Yeah, the Lurking Arm denied a complete Sonya if you just put it in the wave. Sonya is just ridiculous, useless, because she's just completely silenced, but she needs to go into the wave that hard. We had that in one Team League game, and the Sonya had a tough game in that one.
Yeah, she has realized a lot of on her spin, so if you can deny that, I guess it's can really work out. So you're a support main. Have you played much Stukov yet?
Yeah, I tried him a bit, but not that hard self in Team League or something like that. And he was denied in our scrims this week. But I really like his kit as well, and I think he can be very strong, but the team needs to play around him as well. It's not only that the support needs to do the plays with him, the team needs to spread the queue and so on. They rely on that, so they need to move accordingly. It's same with Auriel, where you rely on the team that they get close to each other to get the healing output, and it's the same with Stukov.
In Hero League, I waited for 2 years for people to spread from Kelta's living bombs, and now when Stukov is finally released, they learn how to spread away from stuff that spreads.
Yeah. Team baby rage. But are there any question to which heroic is the best? It is deep warm, right?
Yes, the Japanese Express. I really like it. The short cooldown, you can use it to peel if you have a Chromine team. It's really good. And it gives 50 armor, so I've been a couple times saving my life as Stukov by using it after I see Tracer putting a bomb on me and giving me instantly 50 armor by pushing something. Just it has so many uses that I think it's just straight up better than Flailing Swipe.
So when will that be changed, Morpheus?
I don't know. I hope they keep it like that. Like maybe change the cooldown a bit. Maybe make it 30, 40 seconds or something. But I think the mechanic from the ult is really, really cool because you can get basically the value of the heroic like a Diablo charge. So you just get the fast stun against a wall or something. Or you say like, I use it more, let's say, as a cocoon. So I try to push somebody out of the team fight completely while my team initiates hardcore. So let's say I push away the tank and the rest of my team dives on the backline. But if you mess up and you kick him really, really far, you're also useless in a team fight. And then it's like a 4v4 because the arm is going and going and going and you can't do anything. So I think the mechanic is super cool. And also there's a lot of potential to play around the arm for both teams. So it's not a complete OP heroic that there's no potential to play around it for the opponent team. And that's, I think, really cool. And like the other ultimate is, for me, it's too straightforward. I think it's actually not that bad. Maybe cooldown is a bit too long for what it's doing at the moment. But for me, it's just too straightforward. Like 3 swipes that gets bigger. I mean, it's nice. The animation is pretty cool, but there's no potential to play around it for the opponent team. Like even if you cleanse 1 or something, you won't secure the kill if Stukov uses it. So I hope it will stay that deport arm is the better ult because I like it more.
Yeah.
And also, you don't gain unstoppable when you do the swipe. It's really easy to interrupt. Also, I think if it gave unstoppable, I think it would be a bit more viable.
We'll see how Stukov kind of works out in this meta, and hopefully can mix up a bit of a stale support meta, even if it's 1 or 2 supports. Like we talked about last week, the double support meta is pretty dominant, but another hero that saw a lot of changes was Soul. We'll not go as in-depth on him, but how was he felt after the first week with the changes on live?
I think he's actually pretty good. We tried him a bit in scrims. Didn't actually have too much success with him, but it was not because of Zul. It's a bit like the Royal Focus Leoric, if you play Zul. So, I mean, that's kind of obvious because both have the wave clear, but Zul got a little bit up in team fights than before. And I think overall he's a pretty decent pick. Like not first ban, first pick, obviously, but in some compositions he is definitely viable, and also obviously on some maps he shines really good. Like Infernal Shrines, for example, from the competitive map pool, would be a prime example for that. And also I think Tricked already used the old Zul in AGC the last 2 weeks, so I think we will see him a bit more also from the other teams now.
Yeah, we had the Gnappa on from Strict last week, and he talked a lot about how Alex Tropogi has really embraced that Soul, and yeah, they played him in the HGC, so he's obviously have something going for him. Ravatar, you checked out the new Soul?
Yeah, I think he's like the old Soul in a sense that you just clear waves really quickly like you used to, and you're a bit more better in team fights than you used to be. But I think that many have been ignoring that after level 13, it actually takes only 7 seconds, I think, for Xul to clear Infernal Shrines Bruiser camp, not Bruiser, the Siege camp. And I think that's the shortest amount of time any hero uses to take a camp. And before, Xul was horrible at taking camps. It took ages for Xul to take a camp. So I think
But sorry, which build are you going with then? I saw like the W or the Q build are the new ones?
I think the Q build is absolute trap build. You shouldn't go for that. But the W build is really strong. Because you can keep W 100% uptime and you gain like 75% attack speed. if you're at shrines and there are the minions around, you always get a 75 attack speed, and you have 100% uptime, and you gain life leech based on the damage dealt. It's if people clump up a lot and you have something, say Tyrael with Holy Ground or Tassara with Force Wall that forces people to clump up more, you can just carry teamfights alone on Xul, which is something that would have been absurd before the rework.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he can find a place on maybe other maps than Infernal Shrines, Tomb of the Spider Queen, stuff where he usually are already played in the lower leagues. We also have some changes to some other heroes. We're not going to go as deep into this, but Malthel got some changes, Tyrande and Noob once again got some health changes.
Finally.
But I'm actually super tilted about the Anub changes. Like literally super tilted. Because, I mean, obviously I'm a tank main, so I only have 3 heroes to play anyway. And then they nerf one of them. And, what really annoys me about it, I feel they have a lot of problems with balancing tanks and supports. I feel they don't know why certain tanks and supports are that strong in competitive gaming. Because the health pool from Anub was definitely not a problem that he had. He was the tank with the lowest survivability from all. He shined through, obviously, the Cocoon. I think the Cocoon got really good changes. I would have loved to see it being a skill shot, but I think it's fine that they change it like it is. Maybe they're even reworking Cocoon, who knows. And Anub shined through his insane initiation. But they didn't nerf the initiation. They nerfed the health pool, so you can't initiate anymore. And Anub has the same health pool as Oreo now, and he's in the bottom 50% of health pools of all heroes. So even as a second tank, he's not possible to pick anymore, in my opinion, at least in competitive gaming, because when you E in, you're just dead. And even with Locust Swarm, I don't think you will get the survivability to survive a 5-man burst on your hero. And so I'm really not happy with the Anub changes. But okay, enough rant from me. My team already needed to suffer from that. So yeah, needed to rant once again.
I really like the reducing of the range of the Cocoon, because that was just insane. But
yeah, and I think also the missile speed, because that gives finally some potential to play around the Cocoon for the enemy team. Sometimes you saw the awesome clips from pro players, I don't know, dodging Cocoon with Ming Blink or something. And I think that should be possible way more, with Cleanse, Ice Block, and so on. Now it's easier to do that, but we won't see it anymore because Anub won't see any play.
Oh, you think it's that bad that he won't see any
play? I disagree a lot.
Yeah?
So, I think Anubarak is still really good. I don't think Anub was really ever about health. You go in, you get your shield from the level 7 talent, you pop your W, you have even more shields, and you use him use his CC chain and isolation to get a pick or two. One thing that's been ruining that a bit is Stukov, because I've seen many times Anub just going in, and then Stukov puts the E down, and then Anub doesn't go out. He stays. But I think that's a rather specific scenario. I think the missile speed was more impactful than the health nerf. I actually managed to throw one game when I was playing Anubarak, because I threw a Cocoon on Illidan, and then he decided to go in, and the Cocoon landed 6 seconds after pressing the R button, and my team had decided to focus Illidan at that point, and then flamed me for using Cocoon, even in truth I had thrown it out a long time ago.
I think his ability to stun with Rewind on 20 is still insane. We used that a lot recently, and it still feels good, but with the lower health pool, it could be a problem.
Yeah, I just feel like he gets changed all the time for Anubarak. Like, yeah, the health generation, the health changes. Like we've seen that happen a lot of times, and yeah, we'll just see if it is too low now. I'm really not sure. He still has his kit. His kit is still amazing. But what about Malthael or Tyrande? Just really quick, the changes to them will have an impact in coordinated play.
I think Malthael was kind of niche pick already in a really coordinated team play, and I think this made it even more of a niche kinda. I don't think he's first pick worthy anymore. It's still obviously really strong in Hero League and stuff like that, where people don't do focus single target too much or focus at all in the first place. But he still has a place. He punishes bad drafting a lot if your team hasn't prepared for a Malthael and then you last pick it and the enemy team doesn't have a way to deal with him. He's really strong.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, and we're gonna move on now because we have a lot of things to go through. Before we go into a short intermission, we're just gonna have a super quick look at the Heroes Global Championship. Now, the Western Brawl is right around the corner, and which 3 teams will represent the best region in the world, Europe, is kind of a clusterfuck, to be honest. Like, we know current world champions, Fnatic, are secured a spot in Kyiv, but apart from that, it's pretty much up in the air. Now, I asked our resident esports specialist, Hidde, to send me a short summary of what is going on now, because it's fighting for the 2 last spots that will give them a ticket to Kyiv are Tricked Esport, Team Liquid, Dignitas, and Team Expert. And he wrote me, if Liquid beat Liquid beat Dig and lost. Okay, this is insane. If Tricked wins versus Zealots and loses to Dignitas, they will be 4-3. If Dignitas wins versus Tricked, they will be 4-3. If Expert wins versus Team Good Guys and loses to Liquid, they will be 4-3. And if Liquid wins versus Expert, they will be 4-3, which means Zealots also technically can make the playoffs. And yeah, not like Sloth. This is just this is weird. But is this a good thing or a bad thing for EU, with it coming down to the wire in the last round before it's decided who goes to the Western Brawl?
So I think for the viewers, it's the best thing. Because it's really, really interesting to see the play, and it's everybody can beat everybody. Like, nobody would have thought that Zealot can beat Liquid. I think 3-1 it was in the end, which for me it was a huge upset. But for a lot of other pro players looking at Twitter and so on, it wasn't that much of a surprise. They thought, yeah, Liquid is the favorite going into the series, but Zealots can definitely take it. So that's really interesting, first of all. And I think it's like Fnatic is completely broken at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, they just wreck everything. Like, it feels like if they go in the series, like, yeah, okay, let's win today, then they win on that day. It reminds me a lot of the very old Team Liquid, the Spanish Armada, which just wrecked Europe for half a year or something. Not losing too many maps, and it feels the same with Fnatic right now. And then I think afterwards it's like everybody's nearly at the same level. Like, even of playing Ducks, and TGG doesn't look that good at the moment standing wise. I think they also showed some really, really good games against the other teams. With some series could have went both ways. And so for the viewers, it's just great in my opinion. For the teams, I think it's really hard because they still need to prepare super hard, obviously, for the next weeks, what they should do, but they also can't plan for Western Clash and stuff like that. So planning-wise for the teams is probably pretty hard, and also maybe some people or some teams show nerves now that it really comes down to probably the last week of play who qualifies. So for them, it's probably pretty hard now.
Really quick, I have to mention the old Spanish Armada, the old Team Liquid, which dominated Europe for a while. They are back, some of them, with Lucifron and Vortex, the brothers, having the new team together with Gerdamherd, Renston, and Siko, called Bushido Esports, and they are at the top now in the Open Division for Europe.
Yeah, I think they will qualify for Crucible 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So it seems that if Zealots beat Tricked and Team Good Guys, they will be 4-3 and can go through. But they need Tricked to beat Dignitas and Liquid and Liquid to lose to Experts. But if Tricked beats Dignitas but loses to Zealots, both three teams will be 4-3, and Zealots would win the tiebreaker. However, if Expert has to beat Liquid, otherwise Expert wins the 4-3 tiebreaker against Zealots. And yeah, I think we just have to move on and pay attention next weekend, because this is too much for me. It's incredibly close, and it's not in NA. In NA, it's decided who goes through.
I don't think so. I think it's a little bit more clear than EU, but I think, for example, first place is not even secured in NA yet.
No.
I think it's 4 teams for top 3 or something in NA at the moment.
I did find a Reddit thread this morning that it says we already know who's going to the Western Clash. There's no more chances for any more shakeups outside of the miracle of even in death beating both Game Force and No Tomorrow, and that's not gonna happen.
They lost to Gale Force already yesterday.
Yeah, they have us yesterday. Yeah, and so Gale Force, Team Freedom, and No Tomorrow are probably gonna go to the Western Clash, and that's kind of insane. With no Tempo Store, no Roll20, but yeah, it's just NA. We'll get through it. With all of that out of the way, it's definitely time to move on to get into the special segment for this week. We'll do one of our short patented intermissions and be right back with the ultimate guide to shotcalling. So see you in a bit. Welcome back. Now, I've seen good teams both performing over the level and losing games on one hugely important aspect, which just so happened to be this week's special segment. We'll talk about shotcalling as I got this message from Stormich a while back. Hi Narsha, I'm captain and shotcaller of Sky High. You casted us about 2 weeks ago with Rob. On your latest Slothcast, you asked for topics for the next episodes. I would like to get better at the shot calling process. And of course, we'll do that, Stormich. When trying to plan out this segment, we discovered it really wasn't easy, as it's such a complex subject. But with my 2 experts and questions from Mephir and listeners, we'll work our way through it. Now, a part of me says we should start off by differentiating between 2 types of shot calling, micro and macro. Is that a reasonable place to start?
Yeah, I think so. So there's obviously the macro shot calling, so basically the overall strategy, if you want to call it like that, and then micro is maybe the smaller movements, rotations, and the teamfight calling. Even though I would take out teamfight calling a bit, because in the end it's completely different from shot calling, and it can also do some other guy. So I think it's a pretty good basically cut between these 2.
Ravatar, where does the barrier go, for you, between macro and micro?
I often kind of confuse micro shot calling and target calling together. I don't do micro shot calling too much. Usually it's the Anubarak who goes in and says kill this target, and I just go okay, this target dies, fine. And then macro shot calling is whenever I spend a lot of time actually just considering about how do you deal with an option where you have an advantage, and how do you avoid getting ganked even further if you're behind. But I think stuff like going for camps, staying with the rotation is something that the macro shot caller shouldn't have to focus all the time. That's up to everyone to stay with the overall game plan that's been discussed before the match itself.
So let's just start on the top with the macro. Stormage, he writes to us, in the macro game, I would like to know which ways are there to call for ganks, rotations, and how to adapt when things don't go as wanted.
So, okay, let's say like ganks and rotations are kind of similar, so I think we can do these two together. It's like, so when you go in a game, you have a game plan, obviously. So let's say the standard Dragonshire for one rotation, then normally you don't need to call the rotation going to bottom. Like maybe sometimes you say, yeah, don't trade now, we need to rotate mid, stuff like that. But it's like kind of easy to call because everybody knows what's up. Then you have some maps like, let's say Curse Hollow, for example, where you sometimes play a 1-1-3 or 1-1-1 and 2 go camps or ganking. That's a bit more tricky then, especially for the shot caller. Because when the shot caller is not the one rotating, he either needs to have trust in his like ganking squad basically to see the ganks happening, or he needs to watch every lane to see where gank is needed or where gank is possible. So that's already getting a bit harder. There you need to basically see what goes best for your team, because both is possible. And in my team, we do it like that. If we play a ganking squad, then the ganking squad calls out the ganks, and only if I, as the main shot caller, have basically a big goal in mind. So I don't know, I want to kill that guy before the tribute spawns or whatever. Then I say like, yeah, at 1 minute 30 or something, you need to rotate top, apply pressure on him, try to force a tap, and that's like one way I would say to call the ganks. But it's like really, in my opinion, it's really hard sometimes to call the ganks as a shot caller when you're not on the ganking squad, because you maybe don't know the rotations. Maybe you think, yeah, okay, obviously they will rotate out of vision, but then suddenly they walk through the enemy minion wave, and then you're like, yeah, okay, now it's no value anymore to go top, because the top laner obviously knows that you're coming. So ganking is always kind of hard to call. Rotations, in my opinion, is a little bit easier. In my opinion, the solo laner or the guy that plays solo lane should most of the time not be the shot caller. There are cases where it's obviously like that. So Intrigued Alex sometimes plays the solo lane. In the old Roll20, Glorong sometimes played the solo lane, even though he switched back more to the foreman squad. Because in my opinion, it's way easier to call rotations when you're on the foreman, because obviously in the foreman, you're most of the time the group of people that is rotating. And there, you need to have, in the beginning, when you go in the game and you see the map, you need to have a plan already as a shot caller, what you want to do, how you want to rotate. The prime example for that is Sky Temple, for example. It's, in my opinion, a map that really lives through really good rotations, where you can outplay the opponent only with rotations. If we look at Fnatic, for example, when they play the triple global, they have, in the end, they sometimes only have 1-2 kills, but they still have a 3-level lead, only because of out-rotating. So maybe you go in the game, and then you explain your game plan really quick for your team, what you want to do. If you want to do something crazy, so maybe, I don't know, push foreman bottom tower or something, then we rotate foreman mid, the bottom lane rotates bottom and stuff like that. Yeah. And then only you do quick adjustments if maybe some things don't go well. Maybe if the solo laner gets picked once or something, then you do adjustments. But on some maps you can choreograph basically the first 5 minutes already before the game even starts, and you should always do that and explain these first 5 minutes to your team, so you can use your whole energy basically in shot calling to adjustments that you need to do in these first 5 minutes.
Okay, wow, I can really feel like the notepads of shotcallers out there are filling up at this very moment, trying to write this all down. But going a little bit back to the ganking thing, it was something that struck my mind because you kind of talked about two different kinds of ganking. One where you're trying to get the kill to, of course, deny the XP soak and stuff like that, but also sometimes just out of strategic like possibilities, like to force the tap. You mentioned like before an objective, so they don't have it up for deaths. Is that like the thinking?
Yeah, exactly. Also because solo laners nowadays are most of the time pretty safe. If we look at Leoric, even Dehaka, stuff like that, they're pretty safe in the lane. So Dehaka can get the movement speed, Leoric can E out. So it's pretty rare that you get the kill actually at a high level. Maybe if you have an insane rotation or really good stunlock, then you obviously can nearly always get the kill. But it's already a huge win if you force the tap. And then if you go 30 seconds later again to gank him, he doesn't have the tap and he needs to be. And if you time that perfectly with the, I don't know, tribute spawn or whatever, then you get the same one basically as a kill, except the XP that you don't get. But also the other solo laner misses the XP, obviously, and you force rotations from the enemy team. So even if you don't get the kill, forcing tap, stuff like that is a huge win for you.
Yeah, and just to exemplify that with something that I made up in my head just now, take the Haka. He is hard to kill, and he can back and he can burrow in. But if he needs to back and burrow into the lane again before the tribute spawns, and let's say you cap your sea giants, which you usually do before the first tribute, and he has to stay and clear them, it's not sure that he has to burrow up again to go to the tribute after he cleared the giants. And that could be, something that could benefit you, definitely. When you look for ganks, what do you look for? Like, let's say you do 1-1-3 or 1-3-1, whatever. When do you send someone to gank? Like, what do you look for? Do you just look at someone that consistently are a little bit too far in front, or like, is it anything specific?
So, like, the problem is if you go in a game with the game plan 1-1-3, you most of the time don't have a really good ganking squad in the 3-man, because let's say maybe at the moment you would have double support Vala in your 3-man or something, which is not perfect for ganking. So something is already going maybe a bit weaker. What map is a good? Let's just take Solo, even though it's maybe not the best example here. So Solo is a pretty common 1-1-3 map, at least in the amateur scene. On competitive, you see sometimes a bit other stuff, but let's say in the amateur scene, 1-1-3 is pretty common there. And then sometimes you say, okay, I pick 2 winning lanes, or 1 winning lane, 1 lane that is even, and 1 lane that will maybe lose. So you say, okay, my solo laner will lose because, I don't know, I have a bad matchup. Yeah, a bad matchup. I can't make up anything right now. So you have a bad matchup there on top lane. Your mid lane, both tanks are just trading health, so it doesn't matter at all. But your bot lane is winning really hard against their 3-man. Then I would, for example, never call for a gank on top lane, because it's completely unreasonable to rotate 2 people to top side from bottom if you want bottom anyway. So you should always see that you maybe can even make a trade. But for example, on Dragonshire, it can be really difficult if you have a top lane a losing matchup and your 4-man is maybe equal or is only slightly winning. But you know that, for example, they have a Dehaka, you don't have a global on Dragonshire. So at 20, they basically have a win condition with having the global on Dragonshire. So, you know, okay, we need pressure in the early and mid game to maybe get a huge lead to get the win. Then you obviously want the first 2 shrines, or like both shrines pretty early on. So, but your top lane is still losing. So then you need to obviously rotate people to top side to gank. Then you can force tap, essence, or whatever from the solo laner. And another option, especially on Dragonshire, is just to go for the hard camp and apply pressure with that. It's not necessarily a gank. Like, people don't show up in the lane on top. but you apply pressure with tapping the hard camp because the other solo laner needs longer to clear the camp or like to clear the lane. During that, maybe your solo laner can tap the shrine, and you can maybe even tap the decay. So, yeah.
Ravatar, I guess camps also go under the macro part of shot calling. What do you look for when calling camps, like Morpheus mentioned?
I really want to take camps when you can push an advantage with it. Like if, say, you're in Dragonshire, you can just take the bot camps, you call for camps, and then you can rotate everyone top, which forces people to at the same time react to the camps at bottom lane per se, and you want to push the top lane. So basically always split your group on a different lane with camps. So you can get maximum value out of them and take camps when you can do it without getting rotated. Because obviously if the enemy team rotates to your camp while you're taking it, they're probably going to get it unless you have a significant numbers advantage. Which is why I also like, I'm not sure if this gets sidetracked, but in Cursed Hollow, I like to gank a lot the siege camp because everyone goes there at 2 minutes mark. You know there's someone going to be at that camp, which is why globals are so important. Like if you have a Dehaka and Genji, you can really easily take that camp by Genji just rotating and Dehaka surprise burrowing into that place. And that's something you have to play around if they are on the opposing team to send an additional bodyguard to whoever is taking your own siege camp.
Meffer, when it comes to this camps things, like there are some known camps that you like, the like you mentioned, the siege camp on Cursed Hollow, and maybe even the top camp, the hard camp on Sky Temple before the bottom shrine. Are there others like camps that you like to take, or maps where you are not sure?
I need to spread out a bit first because I think in the lower tier teams it's very hard to shot call. We started as a free agent team. Really nobody knows another one from the team. So 5 different people from 5 countries mixed together in a team with completely different approaches for the game. And the skill difference inside the team was very, very large. One was only playing solo queue before that without having a team and playing team league, and it was very, very hard to coordinate all those things because the approaches inside the team was so different. Yeah. And how to go into a game with a 5-man team in a league system, it was very hard to coordinate all those things. And it's not really shot calling in the beginning. It's more coordinating things. Remind to do camps like on Cursed Hollow at minute 2. Do the camp. You just need to remind the guys to do that. It's very, very hard. And to coordinate things with the solo laner, because it happened that our solo laner instantly appeared to the 4-man without any reason, and we lost XP on the solo lane, and I still don't know why. Everyone just needs to know the role he plays before you can start to do proper shot calling.
Is this issues that are known to you other guys?
Yeah, so that also happens at high level.
I'm happy to hear that.
When it comes to strategy and mentality, we'll get back to that. But let's move into like from the macro now. We've looked at like the big picture, the game plan, how you execute the game plan. You call rotations, camps, and ganks. But let's move on to the micro now, which is, as we mentioned earlier, a different aspect of the shot calling. It kind of moves into target calling, as Ravatar mentioned, like in the team fights. What do you do? And Stormedge, he wrote to us, I'm a ranged assassin, and I do most of the shot calls in team fights, but our tank does some too. There we are democratic, because our tank got a better view on the situation than I have. Your thoughts?
It's the same with us. I'm playing support. If I'm not playing USA, I won't be in the front. So mostly the full tank is then doing the shot calls and target calls. But before the team fight happens, we maybe call out the target that we want to cocoon or those things. so to isolate targets and so on. But the shot calling itself, the target calls, is done by the tanks normally.
It's generally by the tanks, but if I can rephrase that a bit, it's done by the individual person in the team who can force a kill in some manner, like say Stitches, you have a hook, then you're obviously the micro caller because whoever you kill is based on who you hook. But there's also situations where you have a Cassia with Valkyrie, which has been more popular now that Stukov is standing still with his lurking arm. Like, it's up to you to call, let's kill this Stukov if you're playing the Cassia with the Valkyrie. But then there are cases like you are the shot caller, say, and you're playing Hypercarry Vala, you don't have a lot of say of who do you kill. Somebody's out of position or somebody gets dragged by the hacker, you just go along with it. And it switches between games whose job that is to do based on the hero you're playing.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from this, that like it's obviously okay to have someone do the macro and someone else on the team do the micro. You maybe want one of your tanks or initiator to be the one that calls the targets. I've also heard playing with like some like semi-pug or something. Just focus whoever I stun, kind of. That kind of works out. When I land a drag, just kill that guy.
Yeah.
Stormish also says, what do we call? What information should the other roles give, and what's the most effective way?
That's a big problem in low tier teams because no one is talking between or in the fights. No one is calling, for example, cooldowns. I think that's very important to know when the healer has a cooldown back for to support the team. Or even if Malv calls out the root time when you have a root again and so on. But no one does it in lower tier teams, as far as I know.
Morpheus, thoughts on this?
Yeah, so if you really want to train on that in the beginning, it's you call out literally everything. Like every ability that you have, every cleanse or whatever, you call out everything. And then in best case, you try to record your comms and then you try to take away one thing that, okay, like this call was completely useless. Like we will never need it. I don't know, like Malv Moonfire or whatever. It's like, it's so useless to call that we take away, and you take away more and more and more to finally get on a level where you really call the important cooldowns. Like for healer, obviously, like with Uther, both heals are really important. The cleanse and the ultimate and the stun. Like actually, Uther only has important abilities. But I don't know. For example, on Lucio, like even though Lucio is pretty bad now, if you have the boob, it's not really necessary to call out the boob because like it's not really helpful in the team fight. I mean, sometimes obviously it is, but you got my point. And so it's really hard to say like which ability is useful because sometimes on the game maybe one ability is not useful at all to call it out, and in the next game it's super important to call it out. I don't know if you let's say you play against Illidan, Arbither Greyman, so mainly auto attack damage with the copy obviously then, and you play a Cassia, then it's really important to call out your blind because at that point they don't deal damage, so you can go really ham as a damage dealer, and also like your secondary damage dealer, and so they can go really ham in this time. But if you play against, I don't know, KT something else, then I mean it's no value to call out the blind because they don't come over auto attack damage anywhere. So before a game, everybody needs to think like, okay, what does the enemy have? What do I have? What abilities and what is helpful in the team fight and so on to call out. Because if you call too much, then in a important game, there maybe comes a so overload that you don't hear the target call anymore suddenly. Like maybe the Malv sees the awesome root on the assassin and everybody can dive on it, but everybody else is calling the cooldown and you don't hear the root coming out, and then you miss the kill and maybe you lose the team fight because of it. So calling stuff like that is really hard, and there's basically no best solution for it. It changes from game to game, in my opinion, even though some things should always be called, for example, stuns and stuff like that.
Ravatar, what kind of cooldowns do you think it's important to keep track of for the enemy team? Is it like just the ultimates, or?
I think the most important are every particle of CC change your enemy team might have. So if you're playing Vala, the fact does Anubarak have an impale up really makes a difference whether you can go full Mongo on the enemy team. And also initiators and escapes are the other important. If Muradin uses E when jumping in, you can actually just focusing Muradin, even though he's a Muradin, because you know he's not going to get out, he doesn't have the jump.
Even the cleanse is important to call out. If the enemy team has no cleanse anymore for 55 seconds, it's very important to know.
Also, I think, sorry, but one thing more, like for example, Stitch is pretty popular at the moment, and I think everybody calls out the hook. Like when the hook is out, nobody gets it. Like, and then I see most of the time, like teams are just chilling, basically waiting 16 seconds again, so the enemy team has hook up again. And I'm getting crazy when I see that, because if you play against a good team, let's say they play KT Stitches or something like that, like you will see the hook and instantly one more stun. Maybe it's only my fruit or only KT stun, but you will definitely see one more stun to follow up. And then, you know, okay, they used this, and that should be your window to engage. So basically, when you see the hook missing and everybody's in position, you go completely crazy on them, because they miss basically 2 CCs. And if you just wait, like hook is out, and you're like, oh yeah, nice. Like we dodged the hook, we are so good. And then you chill. And then like 15 seconds later, hook comes again. Now somebody gets hooked and he is dead. And you're like, yeah, but what can we do? Like this hero is so OP. Like
they are relying on those hooks and stun combinations. And if
exactly.
can dodge them and then capitalize on them missing their abilities, it can be an advantage for you.
I kind of wanted to say that I'm not sure if this actually applies to everything like macro and micro and strategy shot calling, but I think one of the most important aspects of a shot caller is to know how you can push some advantage. If the enemy team misses a hook, you should try to get something out of that. If the enemy team wastes a ultimate, and if you have 39 minions on Shrine and any team has 0, you shouldn't just immediately take the Punisher and do the usual thing, but actually you have chance to wait your cooldowns, get camps, and make something out of it. I get really triggered whenever I see a team fight where 3 enemy team dies, you're everyone alive, and then everyone starts backing up, and you come back and everyone's back alive from both sides.
Capitalization. Just to round out the micro part, our last question from Stormwitch here. He says, I got a little problem that sometimes I or someone else can't see the focus target, and when he sees it, it's too late. Like, I think he asked, like, how do you work around like positioning or direction? Like, how detailed should the target calling be?
So there's one thing to say, get good. No. So that's actually a thing that's really, which is really hard to find a solution. So first of all, you can say basically either the initiator or the one that doesn't see the target did a huge mistake with calling the target or like going for the target. Because either the initiator is way too deep or the follow-up damage or whatever was like didn't saw the kill basically, so wasn't in position, but 3 other people maybe were. Then it was his mistake, obviously. So there are already basically 2 people that could do the mistake. And then sometimes maybe when 3 people clump or something and you call one hero, you don't really know like who is it right now. And what I do then is like I call out the name of the player, because you see the name above him. Sometimes that helps, but not always. So this is something that's really hard basically to find a solution for, in my opinion. It comes with practice, in my opinion, because the more you play, especially with your tank or like with your assassin, you know, okay, the assassin will go for this kill. Like he sees the kill there, I can go in. or like when you're assassin, you know, okay, like the tank sees the stun there, I can go in, but it's really hard, like to just say, yeah, you did this, and it will never happen again, because
I think a good example would be Anoop. If he dives in, you probably won't be able to follow as a Myth to land another route, because he just dives in too hard. He's too far away from you, but you can't just follow up. So you need to make your tank aware where your own team is, so that you can capitalize on his abilities.
Would maybe like just plan it out more help? Like let's say Anub, okay, I burrow in 5 and just say who maybe you're aiming for. So let's say in this case the mouth can move a bit forward to be in range for that route.
Yeah,
I think that's coordination before the team fight, just to know who will do what at what time, and then you can just coordinate it. Sorry, Morpheus.
Yeah, so I think like this is the best scenario, but I would say it happens like probably you can plan like 70% of the time, in my opinion. But Heroes is such a fast game that you need to adapt on the fly, and sometimes in calls it's like also my mistake. Then obviously I say like, okay, like in 3 seconds or something, I look for the stun on somebody, even though I already have the cooldown. I also say that like I already have the cooldown, but I want to wait like 3 seconds, maybe, I don't know, some ultimate or whatever I'm waiting for. But then I see somebody coming from the flank from the enemy team, and after, like I said, I'm trying to stun in 5 seconds, I see somebody coming from the flank, and I instantly yell at him like, go, 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 go. And like my team is like, what? He does that like 3 seconds, like what? And that's like one of the problems basically that you can have when you have like this communication. It's really important to have it, like especially hook, Anoop charge, etc, slide, stuff like that is really important to say, okay, I'm looking for one now. But also your team always needs to be aware to like basically to their surroundings. So when somebody comes from the flank and he's not protected from his team, everybody needs to see the skill, which is really important. It's not the tank that needs to see the kill. It's literally everybody needs to see the kill. If only 4 people see the kill, but 1 not, then you maybe lose the team fight. And then it's not only the fault from the guy that messed up, but it's basically everyone's fault, because they didn't communicate maybe well enough, or they just weren't on the same page in that scenario.
We're going to move on to the strategy part of shot calling now, as we got some really good help from a good friend of the show, Fictional Aroma, that sent us a couple of talking points. This is mostly situations you will be in a game that revolves around shot calling. First he says, on what maps could it be considered viable to ignore a map objective, and what should be the alternate gained value for skipping it?
I would like to start with probably Infernal Shrines and Cursed Hollow are the first things that come to mind, because in Cursed Hollow the first and the second tribute don't really do anything at all. Only the third objective has an impact. So especially if you have globals, you can just try to gain an XP lead. That's the most common reason to skip an objective, or even it out. Or if the enemy team already has an XP lead or a talent tier lead, you shouldn't try to fight in that case, unless that objective would win the enemy team the game. But I would, especially in Cursed Hollow, suggest getting a global or 2, and then people who try to just delay the tribute, so your team can get an XP lead and confirm all the objectives to come after that. And in Infernal Shrines also, the objectives take a lot of time, and the first Punisher most times is not the most impactful one, since it most times just get the front wall, unless there's a Sylvanas or something like that included in the mix.
Isn't the strategy based on your draft as well? Because you need to capitalize on your draft with your strategy.
Yeah, like 100%. For example, pretty good example for that, I think, is Cursed Hollow. When you play Ravatar, it's pretty common pick on the map. And Ravatar is, I don't want to say bad before 10, but you don't get the insane value with the copy, I don't know, on a Greyman, on a Illidan and stuff like that before 10, because obviously it says heroic. So you want to stall maybe the tribute so you get to level 10, but you're well aware that you most likely give up the first 2 tributes. And maybe if things go bad, you actually give up the first curse. But you know, later on with Ravatar, you can create a win condition. And this is like, win condition is a word that you hear really, really often, also in professional casts and stuff like that. And I was like, what really is a win condition? And it's actually pretty simple, because it's like, if you get a favorable fight or can have an advantage or something like that, and you can't win because of it, like let's say you 5-man wipe the enemy team and you can't win, then you obviously don't have a win condition yet. When you, for example, open a keep, or like when you kill a keep, you have a win condition, because when you kill the enemy, you can go to the core. Also, sometimes, like in late game, it can already be a win condition to kill a 4, because when 60 seconds death timer are there, and you fight on the lane where the 4 isn't there anymore, it's also a win condition, basically to just run through that. Like basically the win condition is then to win the team fight. Because before you created basically the open space at the 4, and then you just run through 60 seconds, it's enough time to kill the keep and the core. So when you give up tributes, you want to see, or like you want to have in mind your win condition. It's when you play against the Sylvanas, for example, on Infernal Shrines, that was a pretty nice example. Like the win condition for the enemy team is to get the Punisher, because after 2, like with every Punisher, they most likely will get a 4, and after 3 Punisher, that means they already have 3 4s, have a big XP lead. With the next Punisher, they will most likely get a keep, and if they get a good team fight, they will end. So their win condition is to get the Punisher and push with that, open the map with that. If you're the enemy team and you don't have Sylvanas, so you can say, okay, our win condition is maybe something else. Either it's a really good push through globals, so we open maps, we open the map through that, either the Haka fights or stuff like that, or our win condition is just to kill the enemy. That's also possible. It's in competitive gaming, it's not a win condition that you see that often, that teams only go for the kill, or like for the winning team fight as a win condition. But especially on amateur level, it's in my opinion one of the best win conditions, because if you know, yeah, okay, we just have the better team fight comp, then we team fight them 24/7, and then the enemy team needs to adapt again. That they need to rethink, okay, what can we do now to create a win condition? We won't win any fights, which means we won't win any Punisher if the enemy team plays correctly. So maybe they say, okay, we go to, when Punisher spawns up, we go to bottom, get a 4. The enemy team maybe will also get a 4 with the Punisher, but once we're maybe lucky, get a good team fight or can out-rotate them, we can create our win condition with getting a keep on that line. So, yeah.
You talked about all the win conditions going on the core, and that's kind of tied up to the second question from Fictional Aroma. He says, we have all seen teams clown it on the core, wipe and fail. In the instances, it's not a clear outright victory. What should you be looking for, and what judgment should you make do you need to do to make the call to go core? Ravatar?
Well, obviously, whenever you go core, you want to have a significant advantage. You want to have people dead, for example, or an objective with you. And you should really consider your team comp, what you have. If, for example, you have Tyrael with Sanctification or Illidan, your chance to get the core is much higher, and you are able to go there with a slightly smaller advantage. Say the enemy team has only one guy dead, you maybe can go core if you have people who can capitalize on destroying cores. And winning core is known to be rather beneficial for winning games. So I would also recommend drafting a team that has a way of destroying cores easily. But obviously, if the enemy team has more than 1 people dead too, you should try to capitalize on getting that core. And unless people are really out of position on the enemy team, you should just capitalize on getting that core done instead of going for frags.
Yeah, you just said something there that I really want to mention. To all you DPS horse out there, like, I know you. I'm one of you that when you go core, please hit the core. Like I've seen so many failed core attempts for someone that says, "Yeah, I just need to do a little bit more hero damage and pad my numbers. We're gonna win anyways," and then you wipe on the 5% core. There's also a question regarding. It's kind of the same, only regarding bosses. Like, what kind of judgments do you do regarding calling to go to a boss?
Well, probably the best example is Cursed Hollow. I like to use examples a lot, I know. But like taking the enemy team's boss or taking a boss on a lane where there are already structures down obviously gets more value. But you always want to consider if you can take a boss, even if you have an advantage if the enemy team has Satyriel with Holy Ground and stuff like that. But you want to deny that boss because it also denies the enemy team's win condition if your own lane is down or even close to that. In Warhead Junction, you can take bosses with slightly lighter mindset because the bosses don't really deal that much damage to players because you can avoid it all by just not standing at the locusts, which you shouldn't do. You shouldn't go Warhead Junction in the first place in that case. And you should never go into Warhead Junction anyways, to be fair. But yeah, unless it's team league.
But in the game, like let's say, yeah, you want to do boss, but what do you really quickly go through in your brain before saying yay or nay? Is it safe?
It's not only it is safe, but is it worth it? If the game is early, you shouldn't try to seek for going for a boss because the boss before I think it's 5 minutes mark or something, it doesn't do a lot. It dies to the first towers or something like that. You have to consider whether it's worth the risk. If enemy teams gets the boss, say if they could go to core if they get this boss, then you really want to deny this boss, even though it might be sometimes a little bit risky because it denies the enemy team's win condition for next 3 or 4 minutes in that case. And also looking at the team comps, as I said, if the enemy team has a way of stealing a boss with Gust or
Fear,
Emerald Wind, you really need to check if your healer has a cleanse up. And if you don't, you shouldn't really try for it because you're most likely going to give enemy team a free boss. And well, I've lately played against certain streamer Lazar who has wrecked my last team in a past few games, but we have always won the game because it every time fell to the same thing. We had a Tyrael and we had Holy Ground. Yeah. They went for the boss every time and then alone Tyrael stole it. And then we proceeded to win the game.
So when it comes to should I take boss or yes or no, it's mostly down to after 16, do you have the Tyrael or is he on the opponent team?
And
it's basically on knowledge.
Or how much the risk or reward is.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna move on to the last point when it comes to shot calling. It's probably the biggest. It's mentality. Like the first question that came in from Stormage regarding this, he says it's no problem when things go as planned, but if we lose the early game, the calls at mid game are not good for me. Which sounds like some good old tilting.
Yeah. Regarding that, the best advice I can give is to try to get the XP even and not go for fights you are bound to lose. For example, if the enemy team has got a huge talent tier power spike, you shouldn't try to even that gap by going in an unfavorable team fight. You should try to go for camps, apply map pressure, destroy minions, and if you can get an isolated frag, that also helps a lot. But your shot calling should become way more careful because you're not longer in an even spot. Calling for a team fight is no longer a good plan because you're not most likely going to win it if you lost it when you were even.
Morpheus, I've heard that Germans never tilt. What are your thoughts around that? If you should happen to get behind.
So actually, I tilt pretty fast. In like when I play with my team, I actually tilt pretty fast, which is super bad as a shot caller. And a while back, I think I was actually the reason why we lost a lot of games when we were behind. because obviously, like, the good old feed ruins every strat. It actually tilted me super hard when people just fed on lane without any reason. And it, in my opinion, it's actually fine to get tilted as long as you don't show it in comms and in your gameplay. Like, in your mind, you can say like, fuck this guy. Like, I hate him so much. He ruined my perfect strategy.
Hello, Roach.
As long as you don't show that in the comms, it's all fine. But the problem I had, for example, a while back is I showed it every time on comms. Like, I didn't say like, man, you really need to stop dying. Like, you're ruining the game. But I was like passive aggressive, or maybe even the game after, I was like, yeah, we should try to get you on a comfort pick and stuff like that. Which is like, no, normally you wouldn't say, yeah, okay, like that guy is not toxic at all. But it's like the guy, like basically every member in your team needs to know that everyone trusts each other ability to play a hero. But when somebody plays a hero and everybody knows, okay, yeah, we lost because he picked that hero, like no question asked. You can't say in the draft afterwards, like, yeah, don't play that hero anymore. It didn't work out. Like, this is just not helpful. So tilting is fine in my opinion. Just don't show it in comms. And I never, like, I played in a lot of teams already, even though I was mostly the shotcaller in all of them, to be fair. But in every team that I played, when you're behind, comms suddenly get pretty quiet, pretty silent, especially when you're actually at a game where you would think, yeah, okay, we should win this, and then suddenly you're behind, and like everybody's getting quiet, silent, and then you don't call out rotations anymore. You don't call out cooldowns anymore. You lose the next team fight. Then everybody's really tilted. And like, this is basically, this just goes further and further and gets worse. And so it's, as a shot caller, in my opinion, it's your job to keep the motivation high in your team. It's like, not like, yeah, okay, boys, we got this. Everything looks fine. That's not really what I mean, because everybody, like, when you're 3 levels behind, everybody sees like nothing is all right. Like, this game is really shit for us. It's like more, okay, we do this. Basically, you give your team a structure, plan, like, what do we do next? It's like that when they think about what we're doing next, they can't think about like, why are we losing this? Why is this guy feeding so much? Because they need to think about other things. And in my opinion, that's really important. And I think lately in my team, after I tried to pick up that, we got way better in playing from behind. And I felt also the team atmosphere after a loss or after we're getting behind is much better on our team, because I try to not tilt at people anymore. I just tilt on myself. And also, like, after a loss, basically, I try to take all the blame on me, because I know what went wrong, basically, and nearly everybody knows, because everybody is pretty intelligent, and I think this goes for every team. Like, they are all just clever people in there, and then most of the time know how to play the game. So nearly everybody knows why they lost. So it doesn't help to say afterwards, like, yeah, we lost because you fucked up big time in that team fight. It's like, I try to say, like, yeah, if I would have called the other thing, or if I wouldn't have went for the initiate there, we maybe had an easier time in this game. So I tried to do the next better one, and then everybody can blame me. I don't care, as long as they don't blame each other, and as long as they still trust their own ability, I'm fine with them blaming me. Like, I don't care.
Okay, so what you're saying is keep calm, tell yourself and the team that you have the late game, and if everything goes to shit, take the blame.
Yeah, so
okay,
getting late game is nice, but especially when you have an early game comp and you're behind and everybody knows that, it's like, you say like, okay, we're really far behind. We see that, I don't know, we're 2 keeps down or something. It's like, the only thing basically to come back is to go for a disadvantage fight. Like, also stuff like that happens, but it's, in my opinion, just important that you try to not tilt each other. Like, you're a team and you need to act as a team, even if you maybe never see each other in person. It's like, you need to try that you are basically the other guys too. It's, you need to act as a team, and if you tilt at each other or blame each other, then you're not acting as a team, and then you lost already.
Okay, we got 5 more minutes now, and so we just need to skip through the rest of this decently quick. When
Flaming Froge always still works.
Flaming Frog always.
It keeps the morale up for everyone.
Regarding Frog, okay, not really. I can't tie this up to him. But there's something that has been asked by many people. People not following calls, like Murphy mentioned it earlier, that has a tendency to happen, especially in free agent teams. What to do?
I think this just need to be developed inside the team. You just need to do good calls for some weeks so that the guys around you trust in you and your calls. And you need to talk during the draft about how to approach into the game so that everybody knows the plan and why you do those calls.
Okay, so that kind of ties into something else that some people ask, like, what's better, clear comps or constant chatter? Like Rob, guest on the show, friend of the show, says, how do you handle other people giving input? Do you encourage people to call stuff as suggestions, or do they make their team be quiet?
I rely on them. For example, I rely on the tank to do the engages. I miss core calls all the time. I have one guy around me that always reminds us, we could go core. Why don't we do that? Because I just miss those calls.
Yes.
I need them, but because I'm not that experienced as Morpheus, for example. So
yeah. So how do you do it?
Yeah, I think like one big difference actually, input is not other people giving calls. That's something completely different, and that's really important to know. So input, basically, in my opinion at least, is, for example, yeah, top laners missing, like lanes are missing, they use this heroic or whatever, and also like enemy team could be boss, we could do our hard camp, stuff like that as input. If the other team member says, let's do hard camp and works there, that's in my opinion a call, and that can be actually really bad if you have another plan as the main shot caller and maybe you didn't explain it, or like maybe just some other forgot it. Like that happens nearly every time on my team. Like I explain the game plan, especially on Sky Temple, where you can really choreograph the first 5 minutes. Like you say this. Then at 3 minutes, one guy is like, yeah, but what is with our hard camp? Why didn't we do it? And I was like, yeah, I explained in the beginning, but then like you basically need to explain again. And
okay, yeah. So what you're saying is suggestions are really good, making calls is not good. If you are not the shot caller.
It depends. Like maybe you have a team where you do the group shot calling. I think competitive wise, Team Liquid, for example, is a team that doesn't have a main shot caller, or also Tempo Storm, that have like basically the group shot calling. That's completely fine, but you basically need to agree on one thing. It can't be that you go in the game and think, yeah, I'm the main shot caller. Everybody does what I say, and then there are 2 other people also calling stuff. And you're like, what's happening? Like, I didn't call that. Why is suddenly already the easy camp captured, even though I wanted 1 minute later? So stuff like that.
Last in the shot calling part is a question about another question about the comps. How to keep the trolls and feeders quiet, aka how do you prevent clutter in comps, and how do you prevent silence?
Well, I just like to, whenever things get silent, just to do stuff to keep the morale up. Like, it's okay, guys, if we can get this or that, we can still win. And sometimes even, I'm not sure if this is best way, but we start doing dumb puns, still better than your beetle, by the way. And just something that can get people off tilt to prevent the silence. And just before the game, we often have huge discussions about calling everything relevant. Like if you're going for a camp, just say go for the. I'm saying, I'm mixing my words up. But like communicate whatever you do, because if you do that, at some point the talking will come naturally again, and goes off.
But how about clutter on the comms? Like I had a scrim this week, which was just wasted time because 2 people we had to use a couple of subs and stuff, but 2 people in the team just talked about stuff all the time. It was related to the game, but it wasn't actually related to what was needed to be said on comms. Like how do how do you make that don't happen?
There are recordings of me saying very politely "shut the fuck up," but I'm not sure if that's the best way.
Is that what you do, Morpheus?
Not like
I would do that.
We also have this problem, but I don't do that. Like I said more nice. Like I said, like let's focus on draft and stuff like that. But this is something that I think every individual needs to improve on yourself. In my opinion, like the game starts as soon as you're in the lobby. 100% focus on the game. It doesn't matter if it's Scrim or Heroes Launch Match or maybe Open Division. As soon as you press join lobby, you're 100% in the game. And then it's not like when the draft starts, it's not like when you're in the loading screen, it's not when the gate opens. As soon as you're in the lobby, the game starts. And then you should even talk earlier, like before, about what you're planning to do in this game. But there maybe it's like, okay, when only 2 or 3 people do it. But as soon as everybody's in the lobby, every word needs to be about the game. There shouldn't be a word about, I don't know, what you ate 10 minutes earlier or stuff like that. Like literally nobody cares about that. And we also have like I have like 2 or 3 people in my team that tend to do that a lot. And it's really like, it's not even that, maybe it doesn't matter at all. Like maybe you're still winning the game and afterwards it's like all happy. But in my opinion, it's just really annoying when you realize that not everyone is focused on the game. And we also have a rule, for example, in our team that during scrims and tournaments and so on, you don't eat. Because people like, when they're like, no, I go top now. like this is super annoying. And I think this is something that you can say it obviously as a team captain, as a shot caller, like we're in the lobby, focus on the game. But if they don't really plan to do that, then they will never do it. Like there's no chance to basically teach them to do it. And well, then there's one drastic approach, does change the team member, in my opinion.
Okay, so too long didn't read. Get good, try hard. If not, you're gonna be gone in the roster apocalypse.
In Division 4.
Yeah, join up and referee in Division 4. So with all of this in mind, you all out there should be able to raise the bar on your shot calling, which will lead to more victories in the Nexus. And if any of this helped you out, feel free to let us know. And if there's anything that you wonder about from drafting, different maps, roles, or meta, feel free to follow Sturmich example and send it to us, and we'll make an episode out of it. But for now, it's time to say goodbye, my friend. Feel free to give the Slothcast a follow on Twitter @SlothcastHots. Subscribe to the podcast and like the YouTube video and so on, as it really helps us out. And thank you to my guests that came out today. How did it feel to be back, Morpheus?
Yeah, it was really nice. I really enjoyed the discussion this time. And I think it's like a topic where you could talk 10 hours and you still only have the feeling you talked about 0.1% about. It's like, I think shot calling is the thing that makes this game so great. It's so much like whoever has the better shot caller most of the time has actually advantage in this area. So it's really something that I enjoy a lot. I don't consider myself as a good shot caller, but I love improving on that. So I really enjoyed the discussion here, and thanks for having me.
And you say that now, after like 1 minute, 1.5 minute, hour of recording?
Yeah, I was scared that I maybe got kicked last minute.
Okay. We need to do it all over again. Okay. Thanks a lot for coming on. You got any shout outs, stream, Twitter things?
So follow me, Twitter, Twitch, both is Hotsmorphus, I believe. I actually think it's Hotsmorphus though. Hit me up there if you enjoyed the discussion. Maybe leave a follow. I would appreciate it. And I'm always also there for questions. If somebody has them, maybe just PM me on Twitter then.
It's good. Ravatar, thanks for coming on the show for the first time. I hope it was enjoyable.
Yes, it was. Angry men at my door waiting for me to come out. Yeah. I'm trying to explain them I'm having a Slothcast. It's not working thus far. But thanks a lot for having me. It has been great fun, and I also had a lot more things to say about shot calling, but we're short on time, so...
Yeah, we went way up over the time that we allotted to it, but I guess we're just going to have a part 2 episode later. Do you have any shout-outs before we leave?
Shoutouts to my theme. Don't get offended for flaming you, but you never get I flame you all the time anyways. Shoutouts to Heroes Lounge. Thanks for having me in this Slothcast. It's been great fun.
Good. Now, Mephir, thanks for being our listeners' alibi today.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here, and I think this could be very helpful for my team and all the other teams in the lower divisions.
Yeah, hopefully.
It's a great chance to be here.
Yeah, I hope you get something out of participating in the ramblings.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, hopefully a lot of other people also can do that. And if people want to find you on the internet, how would they go about doing that?
Twitch Mephir, Twitter Mephir, all written with a 3 in it. Just give me a follow. Shout out to my team that sent me here and maybe will kick me from the team after they see this podcast. I'm not sure about it. Thanks to the My Insanity Heroes team, which make me getting better in this game as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming. As for me, I'm still at _Narsha on Twitter. And just as a hot tip, you should go to twitch.tv/heroes_lounge and follow that channel as the new season is right around the corner and the world best amateur league starts up again. Thanks to everyone watching, listening, sending us feedback and questions, and of course our lovely production crew. See you all in a week, but until then, good luck and have feeds.